everyone. My name is Cédric. I'm a master student at the Université du Québec à Montréal under the supervision of Stéphane de Souza. And like Toss mentioned, my subject is the effects of sine and post-mineral deformation on, I'll just move this out of the way. Okay. On ore distribution at the Welltail deposit at the Amaruq property in the Churchill Province in Nunavut. So for a little bit of context, orogenic gold ore bodies hosted in the embedded iron formations, also known as BIFs, are typically extremely deformed because of competency contrast, which can lead to structural complexities. Amaruq is one such deposit. It's a stratiform orogenic gold ore body hosted in BIF that was deformed and metamorphosed during the Archean and the Paleoproterozoic. It has over 3 million ounces in gold reserves, mined by open pit at the Welltail and IVR deposits, and now also mined underground at Welltail. And the problematic is that, well, complications were met during the modeling process, and that since the start of the project, due to these structural complexities, such as complex fold patterns. So we have an example here. This was taken at Amaruq underground. This is like quartz veins in volcanic rocks. As you can see, they are extremely deformed, very folded, dismembered, boudinaged. Basically, it suffered a lot, and this just makes it very, very complex to model. But in 2018, they opened an exploration ramp underground, which later developed into an underground mine at Welltail, and this offered a new opportunity to study the effects of sine and post-mineral deformation. So that's where I come in. In 2022, Agnico sponsored me to start my master, where the goal was pretty much to help further or understanding of the structures and the structural controls, so I could hopefully help a little bit with the modeling. So the objectives of my study, they were to document the structural setting and geometry of the veins and the replacement zones, to document the distribution and controls of gold mineralization, and finally to integrate my observations, results, and interpretations into Agnico mines, mine development, and ongoing geology/exploration work. And the methodology used was by detailed underground mapping of underground draw points, and take structural measurements while doing the mapping to make stereonets and just general structural analysis. And finally, make microstructural analysis using thin sections. Oops. Okay. So for regional geology, so as I mentioned earlier, we're in the Churchill Province. In the Racicot, Amaruq is right here. Geologically, it's mostly greenstone belts and intrusive Archean rocks. So the intrusive rocks are in white, and in green we have the greenstone belts. And these two rocks are covered by Proterozoic sedimentary basins in beige, a little bit everywhere. About metallogeny, so we have three main ore bodies: Amaruq, Meadowbank, and Méladine. They're all BIF-hosted orogenic gold. They're also all owned by Agnico Mines, which were kind enough to sponsor my project. Of course, there are also multiple other gold showings, and most of them are also the same type, so BIF-hosted orogenic gold. So it's a very common ore body in this craton. Now for local geology. Here we have a map of the property. So in the red outline here, I think you can see my mouse. It says it is the outline of the Welltail pit, and just north of it we have the outline of the IVR pit. And both of these are located inside the rhomboid assemblage, which is a mix of classic sedimentary rocks that we can see in blue, mafic to ultramafic volcanic rocks in purple, and green. And finally, also BIFs, which we can see in orange on here and on here. And the rhombal assemblage is cross-cut by the snow and suite, which we find in pink here, which are Archean granodioritic intrusions. And finally, just north, we have the Amer group, which are Paleopatriozoic sedimentary rocks. So here we have a cross-section of the property. So with the south on the left and on the right, we have the north. We see both deposit, Welltail and IVR. And as we can see, they're defined by great F2 fold at the scale of the property, where we can find Welltail, it is on the limb, on the south limb, and IVR is interpreted to be at the hinge zone in a series of M-shaped folds. And in this case, the northern limb of the fold would be cross-cut by the diorite, so we don't find it. So yeah, Welltail we can find here is basically a chert-rich sedimentary package that's caught between two volcanic units. And IVR, it's a mix of comatite and mafic rocks that are interlayered with iron-rich tuffs and graphitic cherts. So for the geology of the Welltail deposit, my study area is right here. So this is once again a cross-section, but just off the Welltail deposit. So my study area was the underground portion of Welltail. It's also mined by open pit operations. So I put the outline of the final design of the pit just here. Welltail has three distinct stratigraphic domains, so the south, central, and north domains. The central domain is it's a competent chert-rich sedimentary package, and the south and north domains are both volcanic dominated domains that are very rich in talc, which makes them very incompetent. And this competency contrast is ideal for structural traps. And also we have a lot of iron-rich lithologies in the area, which is ideal for chemical traps. So really, the Amaruq really has the best of both worlds. In terms of structures and mineralizations, we have two main deformation events at Amaruq. The main one is D2. It's a sime mineral, so it's the event that brought the mineralization. It's the main event at Amaruq. And we also have D3, which is a post-mineral event. So really passively reworked the mineralization zones and the lithologies by folding them, faulting them, etc. We also have, and now for the mineralization, we have two styles. We have first off the vein style mineralization, the vein style. It takes the form of layer parallel deformed quartz veins. We can see some of them here in the red. So this is the south domain, so the volcanics. And at the contact between the south domain and the central domain, we have like a strong deformation zone with lots of quartz veins, rich in gold. And yeah, they're parallel to the contact in the layers. Of course, we have veins in all the lithologies, but this is just one example. And the second style of mineralization, it's the replacement style. It takes the form of arsenopyrite and/or pyrite-rich layer parallel replacement zones. So we can see some of them here in the central domain. So in the dotted areas, these are arsenopyrite-rich zones. So these zones are layer parallel. They follow the foliation in the chert. We have also pyrite-rich zones in this unit here. It's like iron-rich stuff with like semi-massive to massive pyrite-rich replacement zones that are once again follow the foliation. I could technically go through all of the different structures and the mineralization styles, and all the lithologies, but it would take me a while, and I decided to bring this presentation in another direction. So for this presentation, what I do is I start by covering some geological concepts and some key observations we made at Amaruq, and then I'll use these to present a structural evolution model for the D2 event. So I start right here. The first concept is coaxial deformation or pure shear. What is that? It's a deformation regime where the deformation is orthogonal to the layers, in this case, the bedding. It's an irrotational deformation, unlike the more common non-coaxial deformation, which implies rotation. The second concept is strain partitioning. It implies that there are multiple components to the deformation regime. For example, you could have a reverse and a sinusoidal component, and these components are separated in different domains. So, for example, you could have one lithology accommodate reverse deformation, while another would accommodate the sinistral deformation. In this example I give here, it would be a transperson model. And at Welltail, the chert hosts small perpendicular layer perpendicular extensional veins. So we can see here in the picture, the one that is horizontal. And these veins are in textural continuity to the mineralization related layer parallel veins. So these veins here are related to mineralization, and since they are like meld into each other, it means the both sets are coeval and like they formed at the same time. And the extensional veins are important because they can help us basically place the strain axes. I drew them here. Basically, I'll explain the strain axis real quick. So DZ is the shortening axe. So when you have an horizontal compression, your DZ will be usually horizontal, and DX is perpendicular to it, and it's the stretching, the elongation axis. And basically, the extensional veins will open perpendicular to that, because if you have vertical stretching, certainly the cracks for the extensional veins will open at the horizontal. Another thing we see in this picture is the foliation and the bedding is really vertical and almost perfectly perpendicular to the extensional veins. And this orthogonal relationship suggests coaxial deformation in the chert. And it suggests, the presence of these veins also suggests strain partitioning, because, well, the veins are only present in the chert, so we don't find them in the volcanic units or the clastic sedimentary rocks. Really only in the chert-rich units, the very competent ones. So another example of coaxial deformation at Amaruq, it's once again in the central domain. So here we have a big quartz, matrix quartz boudin, either a vein or just a block. It's hard to tell, but what we need to see here is that the boudinage is symmetrical, which suggests a rotational coaxial deformation in the central domain. And if we move away from that domain, that chert-rich domain, we find like the typical asymmetrical boudins that suggests non-coaxial deformation in the south and north domains. So as you can see here, this is a quartz vein boudin, and the asymmetry shows reverse shearing, which is really the typical case we find in most orogenic gold deposits, unlike coaxial deformation, which is pretty rare. Now, one more concept I'd like to go over. I don't know if you guys can see my hands, but basically, if you have an horizontal layer, so bedding or whatever, and it's subjected to horizontal compression, well, necessarily the layer will fold, right? And as the fold tightens, the limbs will rotate towards parallelism with the elongation axis I mentioned earlier, which means that the limbs of the fold will start to stretch and boudinage once the limbs are at a low angle to the elongation axis. And I think we have a textbook case of this phenomenon at Amaruq. So I put the cross-section once again, where we see the F2 fold with whale-tail at the limb. And as you can see, whale-tail is very boudinaged. And I really think it's just a textbook scenario of this phenomenon right here that we see at whale-tail. Now, finally, for the last part of my presentation, this is the D2 structural evolution model. So, well, it's a model, so models are to be taken with a grain of salt. It's based only on my observations and my interpretation, so it doesn't have any like complex calculations involved. It's really just yeah, my interpretation. And of course, there are multiple models I think that could fit whale-tail and Amaruq. I just decided to present this one. So here it goes. It's a two-step model where the first step, here we can see the property scale fold, so the F2 fold that I traced here with whale-tail at the limb, so with the south node domains in volcanics and the Churchill domain in the center in orange. So the fold is open, and the strain axis, the elongation axis, is still at a high angle to the limb. So we don't have boudinage yet, the limb, but we could have shearing. And then we move on to the second step. So now the fold, you can still see it here, it's a lot tighter. And now the limbs are at a low angle to the elongation axis, which means that the central domain will start to stretch and boudinage, as we can see here, the boudin shape. And what I suggest is that we add strain partitioning with two components to our deformation. So the first component would be a non-coaxial reverse component that was accommodated by the incompetent rocks. So the volcanic rocks on each side of the central domain, but also some of the classic sedimentary rocks we can find inside the central domain. And the second component would be a coaxial reverse component that was accommodated by the competent rocks. So the chert and the grunerite inside the central domain. And I also suggest that mineralization was introduced in the system at this time. So, thank you.